call the Finance Committee to order. 9:39, forgive me for being late. The claims review meeting went a little bit longer than I had hoped, so please call the roll.
Markham?
Here.
Middleton?
Here.
Quarles?
Here.
McGillivray?
Here.
Howell? Miller?
Here.
Long?
Here.
Cowell? Here. Zach?
Here, we have a quorum, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need an approval of the minutes. Commissioner McGillivray, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Approval of the agenda. I would like to suggest, per our Lynn Sunkist, that we move the item number 1 to the item to the end of it. It was suggested we have a lot of guests here for other agenda items, and that Lynn's gonna be here till the end anyway, that we. I would, after number 3, but then we're making them wait. I was suggesting that we do it as at the end after the closed session. Okay. So I need a motion to move the agenda as amended. Commissioner Quarles.
Support.
Commissioner Long supports. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, with that, do I have any public comment this morning? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Communications, I need a motion to approve it. Commissioner Markham, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Any discussion on that? Yes, Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about item C, the Title 4E Child and Parent Legal Representation Grant Application. I guess my question is, was this something that we were doing this already, but now we're getting this federal grant? This is not something new that, because when I looked in the packet, it looks like there was something from, let me get to it, a previous year that was the total of, yeah, here it is. Oakland County Probate Court, oh gosh, it's loading again. But it did indicate that had, from a previous year, so is there anybody that can maybe clarify that for me?
So, John Cooperrider, can you, we're kind of calling you, it's something on the court, and there's a question about, you wanna, Commissioner Kowal, could you ask your question
Yeah.
again, please?
It's item C under communications, it's the Circuit Court fiscal year 2020 Title 4E Child and Parent Legal Representation Grant Application. I'm taking that this is the first time that we have a grant available to help pay for this program, but this program has been in existence.
No, this is the first time that we've had an opportunity, and I believe this is the first time it's been in existence as well.
So you've been doing the work already?
Yes, yeah, we're paying attorneys, and.
So there already has been a cost one way or the other for this
yes.
program.
Yes.
So this is not all of a sudden $768,000 or
No,
whatever
no, it's.
new spending.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
It's not.
All right, that's it. I mean, it was great that we're getting the federal grant, so,
Well, that was just the application. We're
just the application.
Yeah,
right?
we're waiting on the contract, and then we'll have to decide if that's something that we want to move forward with, so.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, do we need a roll call vote on that? Roll call vote to approve the communications. Call the roll,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, that's the communications, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't realize it's a voice vote.
Okay, voice vote, please.
I can't get my agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. I want to revisit our agenda. It was just brought to my attention by our corporation counsel that we need to have another item added on. It's a proposed treasurer's settlement. And go into closed session. Add that on as item number 5. So could I have a motion to reconsider the agenda as amended? Commissioner Long, support by Commissioner Powell.
I have a question.
Yes.
So would we do both the closed session issues at the same time? Or would we go into closed session, out of closed session, and back into closed session?
We have to do it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for amending that. With that, we are going to move into the item number 2, which is the management and budget 2019 apportionment of local tax rates. Do I have a motion to approve that? Commissioner Markham, Commissioner McGilvray supporting. Where do I have equalization?
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, I can't get mine yet. I got paper one. Yeah, you can have this one. Thank you. Mine is just loading and then unloading. I cleared everything. Me too. IT, where's IT?
Where's Mike Tim? What do we need
Worst
to
internet here in the world.
help us, Mike Tim?
Oh, I know, sorry, but I can't even load up a packet.
Garbage can's right over there.
I know, it is. Yeah,
We're getting no one.
I know.
Yes, we're getting no
So
one.
frustrating.
Okay, so we have Dave Heber from Equalization, and
Did they do a motion? I missed it. Okay.
we have a motion.
Okay, you do. Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to introduce Sarah Cody from Equalization, Shannon Moore from Equalization, and Bill Mann from Corporation Counsel. Before you today is the annual apportionment report, which is required by statute that the Board of Commissioners in every county in the state approve the millage rates, the tax rates for all the taxing authorities. Typically, this report goes through without any controversy or any questions relative to the report, but this past year, we did have one situation come up with Schoolcraft Community College that did an election and wrote their ballot language in a manner that they believe the Headley Amendment, which rolls the rate back to so you can levy no later than the rate of inflation, doesn't apply to their millage for a 10-year period. We being Equalization, myself, disagree with the interpretation of the statute and are recommending a Headley rollback in the report that's been provided to you. The attorneys for Schoolcraft Community College have sent, us correspondence, us being Oakland County, Wayne County, and Washtenaw County. We have a very small portion of Schoolcraft Community College within Oakland County. And I saw the email yesterday that I sent Chris a map of the area, and I know it was forwarded to you. I do have some hard copies if anyone hasn't had an opportunity to look at their email. So it's basically a Wayne County a school district with some small portions in both Washtenaw and Oakland. So at any rate, we've been working with the equalization directors in both of the other counties. I've been told several times by the Washtenaw County equalization director that they are going to recommend the rollback. They're interpreting the statute the same way. And I know, Bill, you've talked to their corporation counsel, and they've said, orally that they agree with that, but they have not put that in writing to my knowledge. I don't know if you...
No, I've seen nothing in writing from them, but that's been their position consistently every time I've talked to Kurt Hedger, who's Corporation Counsel for Washtenaw County.
The equalization director for Wayne County, I emailed him earlier this week to ask him if his position had changed, is he recommending the rollback? And he is, in fact, in writing to me this week via email, recommending the rollback to the Schoolcraft rate as well. There's some conflicting letters that you've received from Wayne County Corporation Council, kind of indicating that they would go along with this as long as Schoolcraft paid all their attorney fees, for the lack of a better way to paraphrase it. So that's the report before you, and I understand, Commissioner Zach, that you'd like to discuss this further?
Yes, because there are differing opinions about this. We do have a legal firm representing Schoolcraft suggesting that their interpretation of the ballot language is correct. And I certainly don't want to be causing any lawsuits against Oakland County, that we have differing opinions. And so, I do have an attorney from Schoolcraft here, and you could have spoken at public comment, but do you have anything that you would like to offer our committee? How do you say it, Mr. Aoun?
Aoun Lake Noun is how you would say it.
Okay, Aoun.
Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
And
I'm sitting.
please come up to the table and a microphone if there's something that you would like to share to us.
Well, Schoolcraft does have a differing opinion. We look back to the Article 9, Section 6 of the Constitution, which allows there to be a millage that can be passed for a 20-year period. And we believe that would be the controlling provision, relying on the Constitution instead of the state statute, and the provision of the statute we don't believe really applies in this exact situation where you're dealing with a restoration and increase of an existing millage. That's the long and short of where Schoolcraft's position is on this. We can get into a lot of details and weeds on it, but our position is we'd much rather be working with Oakland County than against Oakland County. We don't want this to be any public dispute. Thank you.
Commissioner Middleton.
Yeah, you're interpreting that you can write a ballot proposal that overrides the Headley, basically?
That's correct. And part of that, the way you go and look at this is Section 31 of the Headley Amendment says you can't do a millage that's in excess of whatever your last year's millage was multiplied by the MRF. And then it has a provision right at the end of that sentence that says, without voter approval. So that's what we did. We went back and we got voter approval, which if you say that same sentence in the positive and not the negative, you can do it with voter approval. And actually, Corporation Council has agreed that you have the right to override the MRF. The issue, which is the millage reduction fraction, sorry for throwing out acronyms on you, especially this early in the morning. But you can override the MRF. The position is, can you do it for more than 1 year, right? The Corporation Council's position, and I'm sure he can go into it a little bit more detail, is basically that you have to do it in the year. You can only do it for 1 year, and it's only valid for the year that you vote. Well, that's not in the Constitution. There's nothing that limits it in the Constitution. That's why we looked at Article 9, Section 6, which says you can pass a millage for up to 20 years. And so that between the without voter approval language and the 20-year right, we don't think that you can interpret the statute to negate or nullify or impair that right that the voters have and the right that the voters exercised. Right? The voters clearly said in the ballot measure, we want the millage to be increased to 2.27, and we do not want it to be rolled back under the Headley Amendment. It was very clear. And so we think that the voters said it, the Constitution allows it, and that it should be pushed through.
Are there any other units of government using this ballot language and doing the same thing?
It's a great question. We were unable to find anybody that's doing it the same way, which is why it gives such pause and consternation, because nobody's really seen it done this way before. But just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean you can't do it. And we go back to the constitutional language that allows it.
That's all my question.
Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in short, the results of this act, this action, I should say, could set a precedence for the community college as
Yeah,
well as,
precedence in the sense that it hasn't been done before.
right.
That's true.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Markham?
I happen to live in the Schoolcraft School District. I'm in one of those very important precincts down there. And I remember it that way, the way you're speaking, but I think that potentially we should postpone this until all of the lawyers can really come to some sort of consensus. We don't want to be fighting with Wayne County, we don't want to be fighting with Schoolcraft, and so on. So this, I think, has come up to a couple of us pretty quickly, and I think maybe this piece of the whole rest of the pie needs to be discussed
I think
at a
that's
later
very
date.
fair. Very fair.
So I have a question for Mr. Heber. Sure. What's the drop dead date that we have to vote on this in finance?
It says it has to be done in the month of October. We do go back every year in December to deal with late elections or any corrections or changes that local communities do. So, it's, you know, obviously, I mean, I work with this committee and if we postpone that, there's really no issue with us. I don't think anything's gonna come up that's gonna change my mind, but I'm willing to listen. We've kind of been through this a bit, but if we did, it's on the agenda in Wayne County for tomorrow, is my understanding. Now, I don't know if it's on their Ways and Means Committee or if it's before their full board.
I believe it's before the full board tomorrow.
Okay, so I suppose that, and we looked this morning, we've been looking to see, unfortunately, and I'm not here to bash Wayne County, they don't have their information online, so we can look at it and see what the rate they're actually adopting, or I would tell you that rate that's proposed right now. So ours is out there, so I guess we are theoretically first with what we're doing. And if you wanna wait and do a special finance before, the board meeting, is it next Wednesday or is it Thursday?
It's next Wednesday evening.
Okay. There would be no harm in that, I guess, other than I have to come back.
Okay, I have Commissioner Middleton and Commissioner Powell.
This adjustment we're gonna make, is that, Oakland Community College's adjustment will come, because they have an election in November, on their millage rate, correct?
I don't know when they intend to levy it. If they intend to levy
They're not levying.
in December, so
It's a
no,
renewal,
so
I think.
it'd be next year.
That one doesn't start until 2022.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But we do have two schools that we will be back to revise their rates
If they pass.
if they pass in December.
Okay, I forgot my other question, so go ahead.
Come back. Commissioner Powell.
Is there any reason why, well, I don't understand this process, but, so I'm just asking this question, is there any reason you couldn't have just called to get the rate that they're suggesting?
Yeah, I did, via email, I did talk to my counterpart, the Wayne County Equalization Director, and he indicated they intend to do the exact same thing we're doing and recommend the exact same rate. But,
I was
I can't show you that in a document other than an email, so the acid test is does Wayne County's Board of Commissioners do? Because we're merely recommending to you, that's our role, is to verify these rates, recommend what we think is the appropriate interpretation of the statute, and that's what we've done, supported by Corporation Counsel's opinion. And is waiting, to answer your question, Commissioner Zach, is waiting gonna hurt us? No.
One more question, and, Lord Jesus, I forgot, never mind, I forgot that.
I'll come back to you. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question is what is the ramification on one side or the other for the county? Like, if we vote
Well,
for it.
the only ramification is that through some of the letters, I would want to speak for Corporation Counsel, is Schoolcraft has indicated considering suing us. I mean, with the ramifications, if we don't roll the rate back, taxpayers in that area will pay higher taxes, and we think in violation of Headway. So that, the ramifications are to a small number of taxpayers, but it's what did we say, there was like 7,000 parcels in that area, so, out of the 500,000 in the county, so relatively speaking, it's small, but nonetheless, we're looking at it like we think we did the right thing, by recommending the reduced rate.
If I can comment on that as well. The flip side of that is if you do approve what we believe the voters approved and what the Constitution says is 2.27 with the MRF factor of 1, so it's not being reduced and it's for a 10-year period, and there is a taxpayer lawsuit, Schoolcraft will handle the defense for the county. So Corporation Counsel and the county will actually be out of that expense. They won't have to incur that. That's something Schoolcraft will take the burden, because we'd much rather be on the same side with Oakland County defending it than to be adversaries. That's not the position we want whatsoever.
Do you want to address that?
Commissioner, wait, are you,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Middleton?
What's the difference in rate if you do the rollback or if you don't do the rollback?
Yeah, so without doing the rollback, it's 2.27, and it should stay flat for a 10-year period. That's what the millage says. If you do the rollback, what happens is this year it goes to, I believe it's 2.2516 is the number. So it's a small haircut this year, but it has a compounding effect. So whatever the rate that's used this year, in theory, if you're gonna be applying the Headley Amendment, again, we don't agree with that, but if you're gonna apply it, that haircut then starts with the 2.2516 number and goes down again next year, assuming there's a reduction based upon how the millage rates would work out. So it's a compounding effect that can have a significant impact over a 10-year period.
And we don't, if I could, I'm sorry, and we don't think that the ballot language can override that calculation, because it's correct, it sets the maximum authorized each year, just like our rate, and we've been staying above our rollback. You know, for years and years, we levied 4.19 mils, I think it was 14 years in a row. It was less than maximum authorized. Now our maximum authorized is down to 407 and change. And we're levying 4.04 to stay ahead of that real Headley rollback. But so it's applied to all the rates within the county with the exception of debt and the school tax, because they don't apply.
Commissioner Powell?
Pass.
I confused you, I'm sorry.
So, this, well, here, wait, did you have
No,
something?
I was just saying that amount that there is so tiny.
Until you
yeah.
multiply it.
But
And
it-
still, you know what I mean? Cause, let me ask
I'd
this
concede
for
it's a big-
clarity.
It's a big number over 10 years.
The rollback, it declines.
Yeah.
What they're shooting for, they want to keep it at one
At
rate for
one,
10
yes.
years. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Okay.
And so
Okay.
this is a unique situation
Okay.
because we have the Headley law that tells us that we have to roll back. And so we have Schoolcraft College interpreting this law, saying people voted, it's in the Constitution, and we don't have to roll back this millage for 10 years.
Got it.
And so, you know, which way do we want to go? Do we, you know, it's up to the committee. My inclination, I don't feel personally that I have all of the legal interpretation in front of me, and I don't want to have a lawsuit with you, and I want to support education, okay? And I want to support what the voters' intent. You know, that's where I stand. But I also want to make the best vote here as well. And personally, I would like to have things in writing from others that, you know, how are they interpreting it? I don't know if we need to have an attorney general opinion on this Constitution or not. I don't know that. You know, I'm open for discussion from our committee. How do you want to proceed?
I'd like to move to postpone to the next meeting, this item.
Support, okay?
Me too. I'm for it.
Wait, any discussion about Dave, would you like to?
Not on postponing, would like to say one more thing when it's appropriate.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to postpone and support.
But we
Any,
have to have a special meeting, I think.
well, we would call a special meeting either next Wednesday or at a future date, you know, and do you have a time for, do you wanna add?
Next
What?
finance meeting.
But no, you can't.
We
This is
got-
before end of October, is that?
We have to do
No,
it
we
before.
have until, after the election, after the November election. Okay, can we postpone until, the next finance meeting?
No, well, that would put, when is the next finance meeting? If you do a special meeting before the full board meeting, you'll make the October requirement. That would be my recommendation, if we're gonna do this. I mean,
That's fine.
if we, I mean, within a week, we just need to make a decision, and, I mean, yeah, so it'll go to finance on the 23rd, if my date's correct, and then full board again on the 23rd.
Okay. Any other discussion about postponing the vote? Call the roll on that, but we'll come,
Okay.
we're still back to
Yep.
the original.
Okay.
Okay, I'm postponing
To calling a special finance meeting on October 23rd before our whole board meeting.
Okay. Quarles? Yes. McGilvray?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Long?
No.
Cowell?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Zach?
Zach?
Yes.
Someone's gotta be around.
So,
Eight days, 1 day.
okay. And it carries, the motion carries, but Mr. Hebert?
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that we did everything we could, both Sarah, Shannon, myself, Bill Mann, to try to research this. We did make contacts in Treasury with individuals there that work for Treasury. Howard Heideman's been there a long time and recommended and given advice to assessors and treasurers over the years. He indicated the same thing, that the rollback is required. So we, barring getting in front of a judge, we've exhausted all of our avenues that I see of making any change. Bill, I don't know if you've been.
No, I've looked at everything that I think is appropriate. Mr. Noonan, Owen and I disagree on this. My position is that the language that he relies on in Article 9, Section 6 was part of the original 1963 Constitution. Therefore, it had no application to Headley, which was passed in 1978. On top of that, the legislature was certainly aware of what the constitutional provision was when they passed 34D11, which is the statutory language that requires that the Headley override be voted on each and every year. So, in a nutshell, that's our position.
That's the basic crux of it right there.
Well, we should have heard that before we voted, but we didn't, so it's gonna get postponed. We probably could have helped.
So, there are obviously differing opinions, and I would like, before our next meeting, I would like to have information what other counties are doing, and, try and gather, if there's something that can be put in writing from Treasury or whatever legal opinions, that we gather that and send it out to committee members soon, before we vote on this matter next week. Commissioner Miller.
Just a quick question. Is there any case study on this yet?
Case study?
Yeah, like, is any issues?
There are no court decisions.
There's none,
That's
that's
what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Okay. We like to be the first.
Okay, Commissioner McGilvray.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'd also like to see something in writing that Schoolcraft will cover all legal costs.
Absolutely.
And, it was just brought to my attention, I want part of the seeing this, is that my understanding is one of the counties is passing language indemnifying the county from any type of legal bills. And so that's something that we want to consider as well and look at that.
Okay.
So. Okay, any other discussion on this matter? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we're moving to item number 3, which is Water Resources Commissioner Oakland Macomb Interceptor Drainage District Full Faith and Credit Resolution, Refunding Bonds, Series 2019. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Miller, supported by Commissioner Markham.
Good morning. Sid Lockhart, Water Resources Commissioner, Special Projects Manager. We have with us Joe Claney and John Axe, bond counsel for Clark Hill on behalf of OMID, and Steve Burke for our FCI Financial Advisor. We're here to refinance some bonds for the Oakland Macomb Interceptor Drain District and capture some savings, about $250,000 and up, depending on where the market is when this goes through. And Macomb, I believe, has passed theirs this week on their side. these gentlemen here to answer any questions.
So do I have any questions? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
McGillivray,
Yes.
Powell, Miller,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Middleton, Quarles,
Yes.
Zach.
Motion carries. You did
Thank-
such a good
thank you.
job educating us, there was no discussion.
Bring an umbrella, right? Thank you.
And we go into that, okay. Next, okay, next we have, the lawsuit of Holland versus the County of Oakland. And I need a motion by somebody to go into closed session. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Miller. Roll call.
Markham,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
McGillivray,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes. This is to go
This
into
is to go
closed
into
session.
closed session. Miller,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Caldwell. Yes. Zach.
Yes.
Okay, so
you know, you just say.
Oh, it don't matter, y'all know I don't care about what I think.
Have a good time.
I don't bite my.
Please do.
So how'd you take
They declare the meeting back. Now that the camera.
Okay. I want to declare the meeting back in open session. I need a motion. Motion by Powell to support the recommendation.
I'll support it.
I had Commissioner Colwell
Okay.
first. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Caldwell. Yes. Markham,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Quarles. McGillivray,
Yes.
Powell. Zach,
Yes. Motion carries. Now we're moving on to another item number 5, which is the proposed treasurer's settlement. And I need a motion to go into closed session again. Kowal, supported by Markham. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, no, we need a roll call to go into closed session.
Long,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
McGillivray,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Zach.
Yes,
Treasurer.
we are going into closed session. Sorry. I'm going to declare that the meeting is back in open session. I need a motion from Powell, supported by McGilvray, to move the matter as recommended, to be authorized to proceed in accordance with the directives discussed in closed session. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Markham?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Quarles? Yes. McGilvray?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Cowell? Yes. Zach?
Yes. Motion carries. Now we're going to move on to item number 1, Management and Budget Fiscal Year 2019 Third Quarter Financial Forecast and Budget Amendments. I need a motion. Commissioner Miller, and supported by Commissioner McGilvray. And here she is.
So I promise not to take any more than 35 minutes to an hour. I'm just kidding. So this,
Now you have a new agenda.
You have lots of time, no one
Right.
waiting for you to finish, so.
so there, on PDF page 73 of your packet, starts off with the transmittal letter for the third quarter forecast. So with the forecast, we're forecasting favorability overall of roughly $35 million, and that is split between favorable revenue of $10.9 million and favorable expenditures of about $24.1 million. So out of that expenditure favorability of $24 million, roughly $10.2 million of that is related to personnel costs. So our overall general fund, general purpose budget for personnel, and we do budget for all positions for full employment, that budget is roughly, it's like $257 million. So this is a small portion, roughly 3.7% for vacancy and turnover. I'm sorry, it's $276 million. So with that transmittal letter, you'll see a variety of revenue favorability, $10.9 million. The largest favorability that we were experiencing this year deals with, on PDF page 74, deals with charges for services. And that's made up of several items within the general fund, general purpose budget, including $1 million for increase in land transfer tax, $700,000 for recording fees within the clerk's office, and so that favorability will fall to fund balance. Also, we're experiencing favorability within investment income. So we have $3.2 million forecasted for favorable investment income. We have been experiencing better returns on our investments. We do have to make the market value adjustment at the end of the fiscal year. The Treasurer's Office is working on that now, and they're expecting to post that this week. So basically, they have to take the market value as of 9/30 and make the adjustment either up or down based on the value at that particular day. Within the expenditure favorability, like I said, it's roughly half of that is related to personnel. If you look at PDF page 74, you'll note that the transmittal letter notes that there is no department within the general fund, general purpose area that is expected to go over budget overall within their department. However, their budget is controlled at 3 different levels of categories: personnel, operations, and internal support. So there are a couple departments that we will have to make adjustments for with year end for personnel, one of them being the Sheriff's Office. That has been an ongoing matter that we've had to resolve with year end, and we've had, over the last 2 years, I think roughly added $500,000 a year to their overtime budget, so it's up to, we've added $1 million, and we'll continue to look at that. Some of those adjustments will be covered from favorability within the existing sheriff's operations budget, as well as favorability that we have on public telephone commission that relates to the jail inmate phone system. And we do have roughly $260,000 that we have in the overtime reserve that was supposed to cover parental leave. So they're one of the larger departments, 24/7 operation between them and Children's Village that utilizes that. They have staff that utilizes that parental leave, and we have to cover their overtime. So we'll make those adjustments accordingly. So with this overall forecast, we are projecting that the general fund, it will be, we've forecasted planned use of fund balance to the tune of, bless you, $46.4 million, but we're only expecting that fund balance to be reduced by $11.4 million based on this third quarter forecast. Now, we're actively preparing to close the books at the end of this month. There's still a lot of adjustments to be made. We're still waiting on final adjustments or final revenue to be posted for tax revenue, as well as our personal property tax loss reimbursement that we're supposed to get distributed at the end of the end of October that we'll need to record. And in the past, we have experienced where they have reimbursed us more than 100%. We can't count on that. If we get it, we'll take it, but we never want to necessarily count on that. 2 years ago, I think they had 245% reimbursement rate, and last year I think it was 265. I want to point out a couple things in the resolution that you have before you. So on PDF page 67, which is the first page of the resolution, there are a number of items, pretty much, looks like, starting with the fourth whereas, and goes down for several items to reallocate funds for MIDC that needs to be moved to the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission grant fund. So we did accept a grant earlier in the year, and we only budgeted what the grant was authorized for. This is doing the remaining cleanup to remove the rest of that budget that needs to be in the MIDC fund. On PDF page 68, there is a whereas, let's see here. The second whereas from the bottom that talks about reallocating IT development to IT operations. So it's just a shift based on actual usage. There also is another, the next whereas, sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Another whereas regarding MIDC. There was a portion of the beginning stages of the project that dealt with architectural and bid specification costs related to the renovations that are needed for MIDC. The state, the MIDC Commission indicated that they would not cover that. That was about $147,000. So facilities did have some favorability from other projects that were closing out, returning that funding to their original funding source, and then reappropriating it to cover this $147,000. So technically, I mean, normally those projects would just close out. They would go back to their respective either building improvement fund or the general fund, wherever the original source of funds came from. So instead of those monies remaining going back, thank you, going back into the building improvement fund or the general fund, they are being used for this, towards the needs for the architectural and bid specification costs. Okay. Next, on page PDF 69, there is the first whereas on that page, talks about an amendment that's needed for $58,000 for Corporation Counsel's matter management system. That is being, they implemented that system, I want to say probably close to a year ago. When working through the system, they have some determined that there are some more efficiencies needed, reporting, so that this is in order to get between Corporation Counsel roughly $28,000 and risk management of roughly $30,000, so a total of $58,000 coming from the assigned fund balance for technology improvements to make the most out of that system and meet their reporting requirements. The next whereas after that deals with $466,000 for the local road improvement project. So with the close of the books in 2018, that money was treated as a carry forward. Those monies really represented rollover funds where there was not a resolution to appropriate funds for those projects. So a carry forward means monies are appropriated, but there wasn't, the work wasn't completed, it wasn't ready to be started, it wanted to just reappropriate into the next fiscal year. With this, there was no appropriation ever made. It was just a resolution recognizing that there were rollover monies that they would take up in a subsequent fiscal year. So all this is doing is saying, yeah, that they shouldn't have been carry forwards, it should have been really assigned fund balance instead, and so this is correcting that issue. On PDF 70, towards the bottom of that page, the fourth whereas up, this is dealing with a budget amendment of roughly $2.4 million that's needed for the Information Technology Fund. So over the last, I want to say, probably 6 or 7 years, maybe even more, when last time we had budget tasks assigned to departments, one of the things that the IT department did was look at trying to cover some of the planned maintenance and upgrades within their existing departmental budget to maintain the current infrastructure that's already in place. So that is not sustainable. And without rate increases or other adjustments, that cannot continue. We have made some rate adjustments over the last couple of years, and we're using the one-time favorability that we have in 2019 to make sure that the IT fund is sustainable, that we do not, had we not done this, we could have possibly a deficit in the IT fund for 2020. Obviously we do not want that. If there is a deficit in their unrestricted fund balance, then we're required to report that to the state of Michigan and provide a deficit elimination plan that must be resolved in 5 years. And let's see. I think that's all of the major items that I was going to cover in the resolution itself. I will point out that there are probably a number of carry forward requests that will be forthcoming as part of the year-end report. One of them being juvenile resentencing that's in non-departmental general fund. I think there was just over 50 some odd cases that required review. There's still a considerable amount, I believe it's just over 40 to 45 cases that still require work by the prosecutor's office. It would also involve circuit court and the sheriff's office. We have established a separate program to track those costs, and we leave the money in non-departmental general fund and only reallocate it to those departments as they need it. So, like I said, that process has been rather slow. That's been on the books for several years now, and we will probably have a carry forward for that. The other item is $2.4 million that was set aside for the compensation study that was expected to start in 2019. That also will probably be a carry forward request as we're working, as HR is working on getting an update from the consulting company. And it's my understanding that the union classifications or union bargaining units are being reviewed now as well, and those monies will be needed possibly to cover some of those recommendations that come out of the salary study. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Do I have any questions from the committee? Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a little bit unrelated, but related in a way because right now at the state, obviously, we had some 147 line item vetoes, some of which are going to impact our budget, mostly the sheriff, I'm going to say. But I guess, and I think that starts affecting us maybe in November with the sheriff, with the secondary road patrol. But I guess I'm thinking, are we going to be having to come back? I remember years ago when we actually were looking at a government shutdown. I remember planning different things that we were going to do in response to that. So I just wonder if you guys have had any discussion about
Yes,
if this impasse is not resolved pretty soon, what's
So
gonna happen.
that, one of the things that, yeah, we do have a document that Rudy Hobbs has been coordinating on the county executive side regarding the impact to the county's budget for these vetoes, including the secondary road patrol, which started October 1st, 2019. We still don't, typically, I think that grant is typically accepted a little bit later. It's always, it's not before October 1st. So those positions are continuing to be covered right now in the hopes that the supplemental is approved. That's roughly $719,000. Now, if for some reason that it's the sheriff and the county exec and the board's desire to continue those positions, a resolution would have to become before the committee to continue those positions, and we would have to look at a funding source, whether we look at maybe utilizing grant match. But we're hopeful that funding will be restored. As far as GL reimbursement, we have not seen anything on that as far as a supplemental being offered. That's what's in the budget for 2020 is 1.650 million. 2019 to date, we have received 1.763 million, I believe, for reimbursement for the state for prisoners that would normally go to a state facility and are being housed at the county jail. I've heard on just from radio discussions with other counties where they would kind of indicate, oh, we'll just send them to the state. Well, that's all well and good, but it doesn't really resolve, if we have prisoners that go to the state, it really doesn't relieve the county of any cost, because most of that cost is fixed within the jail. It's not like we're gonna have some savings or windfall if those prisoners aren't in there. So that's one of the bigger items that we're watching right now, hoping that there is a resolution to that matter. I mean, it would be one thing, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, it would be one thing if you said, in 2 years, you need to plan to start looking at finding other sources of revenue to cover this because the state's no longer gonna do it, instead of at the 11th hour saying, oh, this is on the chopping block. The other item was, there was $4.2 million vetoed in dealing with child care funding. John Cooperrider from the circuit court has talked to his contacts at the state. They're a little unsure as exactly how that would be funded. It's not supposed to impact any programs directly, but I believe they thought that that was being put in the budget, the state's budget, to offset or compensate for some of the changes that the state is implementing in the State Pays First program. Typically, right now, the counties pay for certain housing for the individuals, and then we are reimbursed 50% from the state. So our total cost, we also get 10% on our total cost reimbursement as an administrative or indirect cost type reimbursement. So if we're not paying that directly, we're losing 10% on that 50%. So it doesn't really, the state pays first. It is moving forward, but we still have the work to make sure that what the state is billing us is correct. We just don't have the voucher necessarily that we're paying and asking for reimbursement. They're going to bill us. So with that, we're expecting maybe $300,000 to $400,000 could be impacted if there's not a way to resolve the loss in the 10% reimbursement. And then the last thing that we noted is there was a veto for payment in lieu of taxes. The county right now realizes roughly $600,000 per year for that payment, for payment on various DNR properties throughout the state, or throughout the county. So let's hope they get it resolved. So another thing that we might have to look at, if, you know, as we're closing the books in the next couple of weeks, do we try to do a carry forward some of the favorability with grant match, and if for some reason the funding doesn't get resolved for the secondary road patrol or other things that we can use to shore up until a time that things can be more thoughtfully planned for, instead of just at the drop of a hat.
Okay. Commissioner McGilvray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lynn, just a question on this local village favorability. Is that money that that communities didn't use,
Which favorability?
on the local road millage?
So those were, the $466,000 was treated as a carry forward and reappropriated in 2019. And it was really rollover dollars that we should have just said, it's assigned fund balance. Because what you did was you took a resolution in 2019 to appropriate it. And then you had another reappropriation with the carry forward. So too much was appropriated in 2019. Because it was done twice, but those monies now have been utilized. Within the resolution, it indicates that there were 4 communities, I don't know them off the top of my head, but it was 4 different resolutions that are noted in the resolution, in the quarterly forecast resolution, that those matters were taken up in 2019 and appropriated.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? So
Commissioner,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Markham.
Thank you. I just had one question about a comment you made about the jail inmate phone system. It sounds like we're making a profit on the jail inmate phone system, which,
I wouldn't call it making a profit. The fees were reduced. It's based on volume calls. It doesn't really cover, I would say that there's a lot of, it can vary month to month as far as the usage is concerned. We tend to budget in that line item a little bit lower because we don't want to anticipate or count on that revenue stream. There was a time period when the FCC was saying that the rates would be more drastically reduced. We have not seen that, and so we did realize or anticipate that revenue stream continuing with the 2020 budget through 2022. So that favorability that we're looking at has roughly $419,000 in this quarterly forecast. It might be even closer to $500,000 or $600,000 by the time we get the final commission checks from the provider. And the Sheriff's Office also has used that to make improvements for communication with between the inmates and their family members or friends. I wouldn't say that it makes a profit, but it does help cover some of the costs. The revenue stream has just been more than we've anticipated with the budget.
I know that, or it's my opinion, that what we charge prisoners to talk to family members is excessive. I believe that myself. So when you say we have $400,000 favorability in our budget, that rings a bell for me. So I only raise it as an issue because it's an issue of fairness. A lot of people in our prison already don't have money, and we're charging them a lot of money per phone call. I know that for a fact.
And I know that the rates have come down.
Good. I have a couple of other questions. One is, as I look through all of this, and thank you for all of the work and all of the analysis that you've done to kind of sort this out for us, because it's, this much information. But something that jumps out at me is information technology is unfavorable in a lot of departments. And I'm wondering if that's just because of the way we account for things?
So, yes, part of that is being handled with an allocation or reallocation with the third quarter forecast, where we're reshifting the budget to meet the needs of the departments. So an allocation's done with the financial analyst over the IT department based on prior usage and looking at new items that may come up. So we've had to, and with a rate adjustment, some of that had to be reallocated. So we are not, we're taking money from IT development that had some favorability and offsetting it with the IT operations. So it's resetting those for the various general fund, general purpose departments. It's not like they're requesting a lot more work, or they're requesting, I will say this though, there are some requests that come from departments that say, well, I want dual monitors, or I want additional non-standardized software. And so there is a process that the departments are working through with their IT liaison to make sure that they do have adequate funding in advance of that. So that really kind of started, I want to say, earlier this fiscal year, so it's just trying to realign their budgets accordingly.
Thank you.
Commissioner Howell.
What is the daily rate that we charge for, housing with the county jail? Do you know that daily rate?
You mean that we're getting reimbursed from the state of Michigan?
So basically, when inmates go into our jails, a month, upon their release date, they have to sign a bill. It's a daily rate for them
Okay.
being in
Yeah,
there.
so
what
that's
is-
different.
Yeah, what is that daily rate, and why is it, cause if I'm not mistaken, I think we're one of the jails that charge the highest in the state on that daily rate.
I do not know that rate off the top of my head. I don't know if,
Is there,
we
can
can follow up on
I would
that,
love
but-
to have that information. I would like to share that with our commissioners so that we know that, you know, we are charging, I mean, her concern about the phone, my concern about the daily rate, and I do understand that we do have bills to pay too as a sheriff department, but at the same time, and the only reason why it came on my radar, cause my brother-in-law, he had a bill, it was $5,000.
and they do.
Coming out of there.
Right.
And it's either you pay it or it goes on your credit report. So that's doing another injustice type thing to an individual. So I'm just trying to figure out if that's something we could just look at that rate. I would love to just review.
And I was just gonna say, I do believe that the individuals work with the collection company to determine the ability to pay.
Okay, so they are giving options outside of just going straight to their credit report, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe that it does,
Okay.
like any type of collection,
Okay.
whether it be residing at the jail and being billed or court-ordered fines and fees.
Got
It's based on the ability to pay.
Okay, thanks.
I also want to address the phone issue. That is a policy issue that has come before us before. That sheriff's office brings it to committee and we approve that rate on the phone collection. So if that's something that needs to be revisited, you can ask to revisit that as well.
Is that the same process for the daily rate as well? Or is that just a mandate type thing that we have to follow based on the state?
One of the reason that we do set a daily rate is that we do have state people that are being housed in the jail, and so we need to have a daily rate to be able to charge.
Yeah, I'm not negating that a daily rate be, as, you know, they be charged a daily rate for being there. I understand it because jail is a business as well. Bills have to be paid. But my question is why is ours have to be the highest? According to what I read in comparison to other county jails, right now, Oakland County is the highest. We charge the highest rate. And I was just, you know, but I wanted to know what was the research behind that and why was that set? Basically, that's all I'm
So
questioning.
I would recommend that be explored through the Public Safety Committee.
Oh,
You're
okay.
asking a question and that they can examine that matter and do some comps.
Yeah, it's just for informational purposes and how they arrived at that price. I mean, that fee. I just was wondering. That's all. Just for knowledge purposes.
I mean, and I'm sure that it's not a full cost rate. I can probably guarantee that. It's not a full cost rate to say that it's being distributed based on the cost of the infrastructure, the building, all of the staffing, right? It's,
Right.
but you just want the details on how the rate's developed and.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? I have questions. Page 70, you did rest. I'm back to the IT, the whereas a budget amendment is recommended to transfer the $2,466,000. So let me understand this. Right now, we're charging, each department has a certain IT amount that is allocated to that department, and we're charging it back to IT, and we don't have enough funding allocated in each department. Is this what we're doing?
So this $2.4 million is indicating that the IT fund is not billing full costs back to the customers, to the departments. So they have typically utilized their own existing fund balance to cover planned maintenance and upgrades within the IT fund. So their rates were not high enough to be able to do all of the planned maintenance and upgrades fully cover depreciation, replace systems, and replace hardware. So this $2.4 million is a one-time transfer from the general fund based on the favorability noted within that whereas statement to the IT fund to keep the IT fund from having an unrestricted fund balance, negative fund balance in 2020.
Okay. Another question about our human resources favorability. Have we not replaced it? It seems like our favorability on personnel costs is greater than I recall. Is that the case this year?
No, it's probably on par with the last 2 years. When we did have a hiring freeze several years ago, it was considerably higher. It was probably closer to $17, $18 million. In the last several years, it's been around between 9 and 10 million. Right now, we're forecasting favorability of 10.2 million. We still have 3 days of pay to complete. That should actually be posted to today. Hopefully by 1 o'clock.
So this is not out of the ordinary
Right.
compared to the other couple years. Finally, and I don't see anybody here on PDF page 182, it's the community home and improvement. We're writing off uncollectible loans. There's actually one family, one home, and it's on page 182, where there's been 2 loans, and we're writing off 2. And just questioning, and I don't see anybody, if we can ask the question, what's our policy? Why are we doing a second loan? And then we have to write off 2, and so.
You're saying where one contract date was in 95 and the next one was 2002? Okay. I'll follow up and talk to
Yeah.
Carrie and Gordon.
So just that question mark there. Anything else? Okay. We need a roll call on this.
Okay. Middleton? Yes. Quarles?
Yes.
McGilvray?
Yes.
Howell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Cowell?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes. Your motion carries. So on other business, we have a budget debrief. And what I would like to do is have a discussion about, we did some things differently in the budget process. I'd like to hear from the committee's feedback. What did you like? What did you didn't like? You know, how do we move forward? But I see a lot of squirming committee members right now. And I would like to see if somebody wants to move this to a future finance agenda.
I'll be happy to move that, Madam Chair.
Me too.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And, well, absolutely, but, you know, we want to make it the best that it can be, and, you know, and were there things that you liked,
There
you
were
didn't
some
like?
good things that happened.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of, but I want to hear collectively. So, any other business items to become before us? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned at 11:00.